Hi, I'm Debbie Elicksen, and I've been blogging and doing some YouTube videos on the process of working with a traditional publisher. My publisher, Self-Counsel Press, has enlisted me to we've been working on my second book with them, which is Publishing and Marketing in the Digital World. And it's finished. They're just tweaking it and kind of looking over the edits to get it ready for a galley proof. And while we were working on the edits, actually, the kind of probably about a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I had decided to pitch the publisher another book idea. And one of the things when you're working with a publisher, initially when you want to get a publisher, there's do's and don'ts, and I've talked about some of those things in the blogs and in my first book, Self-Publishing 101. But once the first one is always the hardest, and I used to always say getting a publisher is harder than it's easier to get an audience with the Pope than getting a publisher. And it's still true. And when you get a publisher, it doesn't necessarily mean you have a lottery ticket. In fact, it can be just the opposite. You're not going to make a lot of money on books because when you do the math, you'll probably be looking at 5 to 10% royalties on the cover cost at best. And so if your cover cost is $20, you might get $1 or $2 per book. So don't quit your day job if you do get a publisher. The advantage of having a publisher is it is a partnership, and while you don't necessarily have control over the layouts, and they can take the editing and take the text to where they want to see it go more, but it is still a negotiation. The advantage of a publisher can be with the distribution. So that's a lot of the publishing companies have their own distribution chain, like the bigger ones, but a company like Self-Counsel Press, they have a really good distribution because they sell business books mostly, and so it's really it's been a nice partnership, and I've enjoyed working with them, which is why I pitched that next book. Anyway, when you try to get the first publisher, it's usually how do I put it? You've really got to do your homework, and it has to be pretty formal when you're doing your first pitch. But once you have the relationship with your publisher, it usually tends to be less formal. I mean, it's still a business relationship, so you have to respect that. So you're not necessarily taking it to a personal level, and even if you are friends on Facebook, it's still a business relationship. So you're not going to necessarily do anything to be too personal or opinionated, what we tend to be with some of our friends. You wouldn't necessarily do that with your publisher, but when you are doing subsequent pitches, they can tend to be less formal. So I'm actually going to read you the pitch that I made to Self-Counsel to get this next book. Now, I didn't know whether they were going to take it or not, and they had to mull it over on their end, so I was quite pleased that they did take it. So now I have my work cut out for me. So I have to get my rear in gear, so to speak, to send them first the outline of the book and then the first couple of chapters. And what they will do is when they see those first couple of chapters, they will decide whether to take it even further, because if the first couple of chapters are like, we don't really like this, they can either kill the book or take it in a new direction. So anyway, this is the pitch that I had sent the publisher. Due to my experience as a writer and the fact that I have worked with celebrities, along with being an entrepreneur, I do believe I have been tapped on the shoulder to shed light on a topic that when you Google it, 99% of the results are for school kids. Yet cyberbullying is pretty rampant in the adult world and in the workplace. To explain this further, this is a blog piece I wrote this week, so I also put the link to that blog. And it was cyberbullying isn't just for the schoolyard. I did some sleuthing and found that there are a variety of platforms, web domains, surprisingly open for these keywords. And I list a couple of them. And I'm pitching this topic, cyberbullying, business cyberbullying, as another book. There are a number of experts who will jump on at the ask to interview for this. I can also call my connections to also get it. And I list a couple of examples of some of the stories related to celebrities and cyberbullying, such as Richard Sherman of the Seattle Seahawks. He was beat up on Twitter right after the NFC final regarding his post-game interview with Aaron Andrews. And I had curated that story on internet billboards. And then there's the film and television industry. And I continue and say cyber attacks seem to be a thing, especially with celebrities, but really anyone. There could be some psychological discussion with experts on why. Certainly the focus would be a step-by-step guide as to options and how to navigate through it. I did touch on it briefly in the Publishing and Marketing in the Digital World book. What do you think? So that's how I managed my pitch. And then just carried them with the edits on the other book, and then lo and behold, I got an email from them saying that yes, we would like to do this book. So, and then they, like the other book, they sent me the contract, they couriered me the contract, and then because I don't have a scanner here, and who uses fax these days. So what I did was, when I got the contract, in order to put it into play, I signed it, had it witnessed, and then took the front page of the contract and the signature page of the contract, put them together, and then took a picture of them, and then emailed the picture to the publisher, and then at the same time dropped the contract, the signed contract, in the mail to go back to them. So that is pitching the next story with the publisher while you are currently working with them. And I hope that is helpful if you already have a publisher. And but if you don't have a publisher and you're looking for a publisher, it is a formal process, and you need to have your ducks in a row. And there are resources out there to help you align your pitch, but make sure you do your homework, and you cannot blanket send your pitch to every Tom, Dick, and Harry at the same time. So it has to be unique. It has to be directed to that publisher exclusively. And you have to actually do a little research about that publisher to make sure that you are sending your pitch to the right place, and to see whether or not that publisher has already published that story, because if they have, they obviously won't be interested in it. So that is my publishing tips for this video.